What we do here is go back, 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 back,
Are
back,
live.
back.
So excited with the wonderful and magical. I can't think of the. Chris, you're the man. You're the man, and I'm so happy you're here with me.
Just say I'm cleanly and I wash my hands and I'm polite. That's the only compliments I need.
I'm so happy you're here with me.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Honestly,
You and
this is awesome.
your clean hands and your polite ways, Chris. First off, this is the first time we've had you on Talking Sith,
Yeah.
so welcome. Hopefully, it's the first of many times. Many times.
Thank you.
This week, me and Chris have decided we are going to go over probably one of the better episodes in the season of The Mandalorian. So be ready for that. We're going to be talking about that, and we're also going to just be covering just some Star Wars. So we're just going to be talking Star Wars today, which is why you're here anyway, is to talk with us about Star Wars. So first, Chris, because you're new on the show and we haven't had you before, me and Adam have gone over many a time our beliefs. Adam is he's a rebel. He's a Jedi. He's a good guy, if you will.
Okay, I see.
One who kind of came up with the concept of the show and stuff, so that's why we're called Talking Sith. I have the Imperial symbol on my shoulder. I like the dark side. Okay, so you don't have to pick a side. I'm not asking you to do that, Chris. That's messed up. That's wrong. It's wrong to do that. I'm not going to ask you to pick a side because that's not what we're about. But what I'm here to ask you is, how do you interpret the Force? If you could wield the Force, and if you were a Force wielder, how would you wield it? Would you be like me and use passion and or would you be like Adam and use reason and logic? Where do you lie on that spectrum? How do you interact with the Force? And how has Star Wars really kind of made you the man you are? Let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
It's interesting you say that you bring that up a little bit because actually most of what I understand, aside from like most of the original trilogy and the just the main canon stuff out of the movies, is actually from video games, and especially Knights of the Old Republic when that first came out. That was absolutely mind blowing to me. Just as a video game in general, it was just such an immersive experience. Looking back, it doesn't really compare to a lot of the immersive experience we have now in video games. But I have to say, when it came to like decision making and involving yourself in like the conversation between like totally, you would think just not important characters at all, and you would just have a conversation with them. It would just kind of increase or decrease like your involvement with the light side or the dark side. I have to say, after going through tons of situations, hypothetically, through these video games especially, I'm totally a light side guy. I'm totally rebel. 100%. and I don't
Adam
know why.
has an ally
It's
here.
just it's absolutely just I don't know. It's not muscle memory. I don't want to say that. It's just like it just happens
Yeah,
naturally with it. I guess it is reasoning, like you say. It's sort of
yeah,
like reasoning. But then again, in a video game, you could make these choices in which you
right,
could just do whatever you want and see kind of what
right.
happens, which is like part of the aspect. But like 9 times out of 10, my guy ends up being
Yeah,
light side unless I
just
do
not
something
even on
absolutely
purpose. You
ridiculous
just
about it.
drift that
Like
way. Did you ever play the game
right, like out of character.
Fable at all? No. Okay.
No, but I understand that's
Yes,
like
it was
very
similar in that
similar
way.
in that
Okay, so
way.
now I did play
Yeah.
KOTOR, obviously. I mean, how could you like? Yeah, I played KOTOR. Everyone's played. You have to. And I think at this point, if you've watched Talking Sith in any regularity whatsoever, you know at this point we mention KOTOR at least once an episode. At least once an episode we talk about KOTOR. So
Yeah.
thank you for getting out of the way ahead, like right out the gate. So that way we're good. We don't need to mention the rest. We've got it out. Bang. Mention KOTOR every time. But what? So now I 100% agree with you, except the opposite way. So when I play video games, or if I play anything that has to do with role play, I drift in the evil direction. And Chris, you know me, I'm not an evil guy. It's not me. But I think it's like that, escapism thing where you're like, oh, if I have a chance to be
It's part of the
someone
decision
else,
making,
I'm
you
gonna be a
know?
savage. Like I'm gonna be a murderer. So my
Right.
favorite characters in Star Wars are always like Vader and Palpatine and these guys who are like a little bit more heavy-handed and stuff. Tarkin, uh, I love Thrawn.
Yeah.
Obviously Revan and Malgus and Plagueis and names that some casual fans might not know. Speaking of casual fans, we're gonna cover some stuff for you today and we're gonna bring you into our world a little bit today. I think we can say that we're
I
gonna
hope
bring you into our
so.
world a little bit today.
I do.
Because we're gonna talk about
I totally consider
episode
myself a casual
or
fan.
chapter 10 of The Mandalorian, and if you did not watch the Rebels or anything like any of the animated series, we're going to go ahead and clear some stuff out for you.
At least the Clone
Yes.
Wars.
Yeah, we're going to clear
Yeah.
some stuff up for you today and make things a little bit easier to understand. So, that being said, again, Chris, I'm so happy to have you here. Like I said, The Mandalorian has been on for 2 seasons now. We covered episode 1 a little bit, and me and Adam actually have recorded an episode where we are going to be covering uh season 2 or episode 2. I'm sorry, episode 2. So don't worry. It seems like we're skipping, but we're not. Because if you watch the channel, you'll see it in crowd. So don't worry. No worries at all. But we're gonna cover that today. So let me go back in my brain. We start off in that episode, I believe, crashing into a planet. That's where the episode starts off. So let's first off, poor Razor Crest. What a season the Razor Crest is. I wish I had like a graphic with some music ready for the Razor Crest, like it's so hard. Like it's just the Razor Crest. Oh man, I didn't think it was gonna be able to fly after they were in that frozen planet. So we're on our way down. We're about to crash land on Trask. So first things first, what'd you think of this awesome? Well, I probably shouldn't pretense it with awesome because I feel like I'm kind of setting you up here. But what'd you think of the planet Trask? When's the last time we've seen an all water planet in Star Wars besides where the Gungans lived? And they lived inside that like little bubble.
That's the thing. Not in nothing really in the movies
action
that would signify something like that. Right. Yeah, nothing live action. Once again, definitely in the video games, there's been plenty of water planets for sure. Manan comes to mind from
Yes.
KOTOR. But yeah, no, that was really incredible. Especially because there was like this totally there's like this pirate vibe about it. Um, I don't know. There sort of seemed this whole undercurrent of like you got this whole vibe of what like the black market was like on this
Yeah,
planet when he pulled into
yeah,
this port,
very
you
piratey.
know. And when he first pulled in, it was like it was almost like a comedic scene, like just the way like kind of
Yeah,
dropped
I love the
directly
Mon
into
Call
the
who's standing
slot
there like,
spot, like
"What's
crashed.
going on?" And he's like crashing into the
Yeah,
planet in a fiery
just
thing, and
so
he's
cool.
like, "Oh, this guy, here we go, crashing into." Like he was so chill about the
Yeah,
whole thing. That was great. And then
which is really great, like simple physical
that
comedy
was
too, which is really
awesome.
awesome.
That was awesome.
Uh,
And then not only that, but as we're coming in and we're crashing into the planet, and you see the port kind of running and doing its thing. It
yeah,
really struck a chord with me in this sense, like we've gone to all like such wildly different places in the Mandalorian, and they've all like felt so like, I guess it's probably so silly to say, but they do feel distinctly different, which isn't an easy thing to do,
yeah,
when making television, but each planet, and that's
right.
another great thing about Star Wars, is like how massive the universe is. So each new iteration of Star Wars, we're always finding like a new planet, or they're always adding stuff, or planets that we just never actually have seen physically, but we know are on the map, we get to see. So I know that I had
Yeah, Trask,
remembered
yeah,
reading about the
yeah.
planet Trask. What book was it? I can't remember now. But I and it was described almost exactly like this, like almost like a pirate town port place. So it was really cool as we like pull in, and you see even the outfits of people were very like almost like not Star Warsy at all. Like they almost were like something you would see people wearing in like old like fisher towns or something, or like fisherman towns. So that was really interesting too. That kind of mix of like what's familiar and what's not. That's also very Star Wars. Um,
Right. Like what's built around the planet,
yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
So we're coming down. We crash into the water. Into the water.
Yeah.
And at this point in our story,
She does a
yeah,
good job, though.
he did a great. He landed that bad boy. Listen, he got it down there.
Good job.
So at this point in the story,
He Hudsoned that
we're
thing, you
looking
know?
for more Mandalorians, right? Because we have to get, um,
Right, yeah.
Grogu home, basically, or with his own kind. So we're looking for more Mandalorians. So in order to find them, we go into this really dingy, uh, sailor bar that we walk into. Um, and so what's really interesting, um, so first off, let me ask you this: Who would, if you had to, face these two species up against each other, who's cooler, the Quarren or the Mon Calamari? Because both of those were featured on the planet. So now, for more casual fans, Mon Calamari are Admiral Akbar. So that should click, right? You should know who Admiral Akbar is. If not, you can go look him up now. And then the Quarren have those. They look like, help me out, Davy Jones,
It's more
Squid,
squid-like in a way.
Davy
Yeah, David
Jones.
Jones, yeah, yeah. More
Exactly.
squid-like, for sure,
So
yeah.
who's cooler? Who wins?
Like, what do you mean? Just who's cooler? Oh man.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I think it's the Quarren. Just for me, because the Mon Calamari just like there's it's such a large like eye like there's too it's too vulnerable, you know what I mean? Like it's like where are you gonna hit that guy directly in one of
Oh my
those
goodness.
eyes? Like directly
Imagine having a
awful.
conversation with
But the
like
Quarren, it's like
Ahmad Calamari, and they're just like it'd be like
it
very
was great how
off-putting.
like the Quarren like fit directly though into that pirate type of like
Yeah,
persona for just a character
yeah,
in general. Never mind just being like fitting into the
yeah,
story. But yeah,
yeah.
the
That was
That was
really
cool.
neat. And something that's not super well known to people who haven't watched the animated series is that their Mon Calamaris and Corns typically don't get along. Um, they had a war at one point in time, I believe. But my referencing is bad at this point. I don't remember what part of the Clone Wars that was in, but it did happen. So that what I thought was interesting, that they don't seem to really have any issues. Everybody's just kind of like they're working, and I did think it was interesting that there's the species that got so the frog lady. I don't know. Did they ever even say what she was? Like, 'cause in the actual like what's it called? It goes on the closed caption or whatever. It calls her Frog Lady. It says Frog Lady. So
Right.
like,
Yeah.
what is she? I don't know what she is.
No, they never mentioned the species
So
name
I guess
anyway.
we'll go with
But
Frog Lady.
yeah, I have no idea.
That works for me. Yeah. So
Lizard
I think it's
froglet.
interesting. Like this planet is clearly like one because she's like it's like one of the only planets that can hold my species. So I just thought to myself, one, the cool thing about this
Right, which
planet
is
is
weird.
there's a whole bunch of it that we don't see, right? Because like I assume that
Yeah.
there's this port, and all these species can like live underwater, but then they trade with people who come in and out of this Trask at this port. But really, there's like a whole other underwater world that
Right.
we're not really even seeing, which is which I thought was pretty cool to think like there's probably but that's like the imagination with Star Wars, right? That was like the whole thing like when we were kids, all we would get were like these little things so you fill in the rest with like it's like you said with like Boba Fett's a perfect example. Like we got like 5 minutes of Boba Fett, but I've created like in my head with toys or
Right.
whatever like hour long movies with Boba Fett. So yeah,
Yeah, he's a favorite.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
he's the man.
100%. But then we also got something like that, the underwater world with like, with the prequels, with
Yeah,
the underwater world of Naboo and everything. But that's not exactly the same as like a
yeah,
global underwater society
yeah.
like how
That
Trask would be. Or the moon
that's what
Trask or
Trask
whatever.
seems like. Yeah, where it's the entire world is really underwater, and
Yeah.
then you have these little ports in it. Yeah, I thought that was really, and especially it's cool to see spaceships like
Sec-
near water. Like you know what I mean? It's like this weird, especially because it looks so old. Like it looks so piratey and old. It was like this is pretty neat. So yeah,
Right. Total
the planet
juxtaposition.
itself was awesome.
Yeah.
The species that we found on this planet were really cool. Either way, he has to talk with this Corn pirate who had a very cool voice. It was all deep and awesome.
You're
Yeah,
right.
that was really fun.
You want to trust him. You want to
Yeah,
trust
yeah.
him.
Or you can hold on one second
Uh,
and
wow.
oh, did I Adam? Adam, are you there?
Wow.
Okay, so we may have Adam in just a moment. I'm gonna give it a second and see if he can come in. But Adam might be here, so that's great. But oh,
Whoa.
Adam is here.
Oh
This is
man.
great. Oh man, this is awesome.
Hold on, I'll be right back. I forgot a different hat.
Oh man, so let me make sure we're good. Adam, let me make sure you're added in and everything's good. Chris had to go switch hats. Let me make sure we got Adam's audio in too. Sorry. that was live, happened random. So Adam's here. Chris is here. This is like a full on show now. Like I said, let me just make sure everybody's audio is good. Adam, you still there?
Back. Yo.
Oh, hold on. Make sure we didn't lose him.
There you are.
Sorry, did you?
Should be able to see him.
Okay. We'll try to add him in. Sorry, guys. Live stuff. My bad. Sorry about that. Okay.
Had to grab my movies hat.
So we're gonna, as we go here, I'm gonna try to get Adam added in, but we're gonna keep going. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get Adam in as we keep talking about this. So, at this point in the episode, Chris, what did you? Who did you think we now? I'm having trouble remembering, and maybe you can jog my memory. At this point, did we have any spoilers?
Okay.
For like Bo-Katan being in the show, I don't remember. Like, we didn't know she was coming, right? That was I feel like it was a surprise. Like, I don't remember getting anything ahead of time saying like, oh, the Mandalorian we're gonna find is Bo-Katan.
From what I was following a bunch of different people at the time on YouTube, at least, but from the most information that I got, even right before an episode, was all just conjecture. Sometimes, like they would say that they had leaks and stuff, but I don't think anyone really knew until like the episodes ever played. So like there was some conjecture that Katie Sackhoff would play Bo-Katan, but not necessarily like in this upcoming episode, and also, not necessarily being in as big of a role as she was in the story of the Mandalorian in the first place, which is crazy. And I only had gone through Clone Wars once, including the final season that came up afterwards. And man, I mean, I know she voiced her, but she absolutely nailed like that part. It was great.
It was pretty incredible.
Yeah,
it was, and so when we're on our way to go meet Bo-Katan, so we get on the ship. First off, we get played a little trick because we think we're going on the ship with Mando.
Yeah.
To go find, like, we kind of get duped. We think we're going to find some actual Mandalorians. That's not what takes place. That's not what happens. So he asked them if they want to see. So first off, Mama Cores we've seen some monsters this season. Some real monsters, man.
Yeah. Yeah. The Crate Dragon, that's crazy.
Crate Dragon at this point. Those spiders. All of that's been it's all been crazy. So, seeing now, what was it? A Mama Core? Is that what was it called? That's what the guy called. I can't remember.
Mama Quarren. So it's like like almost like it. You don't imagine it to be like this crazy sea monster that it is, but then it's like, okay, that makes sense that the Mama Quarren is like this gigantic squid, or in our world would be like the Cthulhu or something,
Hey,
that's what it turns out to be. Hey, hello?
Hey.
Hello? Hello? Am I on the air?
Sir, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, long time, first time.
To Talking Sith.
Got
it. Oh, now if you can answer this question, you'll be the lucky winner to 2 tickets to a ski resort in Nevada opening up soon. It's gonna be very nice, very nice. They're gonna have to import the snow. So, Adam, I miss you, man. It's good to hear from you.
Hey, I miss you too. With free bullets so far.
So thank you for joining. To catch you up, we're covering.
My pleasure. I missed my exit just for this.
we're covering episode technically 3, so chapter 11. And
what? You guys are jumping all over the timeline.
No, I didn't want to not cover episode 2 with you. So we're not jumping around too much, but we're gonna fill people in on that one.
Well, you guys touched on that one scene.
We go through episodes 2, like Attack of the Clones.
But yeah, we did touch on the very awesome scene with the frog lady.
Touchy scene.
Oh, so
Oh
good.
yeah. Oh my God. Not my proudest fab, but
Steamy scene.
So yeah, we're just covering the part now where we get on the ship and we realize something might be going on. Chris just explained to us what a mama corn was. So that's where we're at.
Mama corn. Do you know anything about the mama corn, Adam?
Well, Chris, I'm glad that you asked because
Yeah.
it gives me an opportunity to say everything that I didn't know, which is nothing at all.
Wise words from Adam.
I remember the
Well
corn, the gobble from Battlefront 1. That was like our favorite thing to do was gobble emote the corn and then try to snipe in the middle of the emote. Get a quick scope in the middle of the gobble. So we called it a gobble snipe. So I think in our old Talking Sith videos, you might find some gobble snipe highlights. But that was cool. But I didn't have any prior like expectation. That's one of the cool things about the Mandalorian is they can say something that you know of from the lore, but you don't have a visual representation for. Like the crate dragon in episode whatever 9. There was like you know what a crate dragon is, but to finally see one on screen is sick. And they did that really well with season 1, and they do it with the corn. Like if you had asked me to write a fan fiction about it, I could write something similar in terms of appearance. But it's pretty cool to see it like visually realized. But I didn't have much going into it, which is part of what I like about the Mandalorian is I think I heard Chris say before you guys could hear me that he has seen all of Clone Wars, and Chaz, I know you have too. I haven't seen all of Clone Wars, so there's a lot of extended universe TV stuff that I'm not familiar with, at least intimately. Whereas like the old, 90s and early 2000s extended universe novels and comics, I am pretty familiar with, as well as obviously all of the games. So for them to throw in a bunch of Clone Wars stuff into Mandalorian is cool for me because I am going through it currently at my own terrible pace. But it's neat to see the things that some of the things I haven't seen yet, like Bo-Katan. I know is such a huge event for all the fanboys. For her to be in the live action stuff is really cool. Obviously, Ahsoka I am familiar with, but other than that, no. That's the really long answer. No is the short answer. I was not familiar.
So I'm gonna ask Chris first, real quick. When we knew we were going to meet other Mandalorians, did you have any Mandalorians in mind that we were going to see? Did you think it was going to be Bo-Katan, or did you have somebody in mind already?
So, yes, I had someone in mind already. No, I had no idea it would be anyone from... I literally, every single episode, I promise you, after the first episode, I was hoping just Boba Fett would pop out of fucking nowhere and just like take everything down. Either team up with him or take everything down. You know what I mean? One way or the other. Because he had the armor right after that first episode. So and then you knew that was like the very last shot was Boba Fett was like spying on him. So you knew every moment he was just like he was just clocking him the whole time. Yeah. So I was just waiting for that.
At the end of season
that episode, absolutely, Boba Fett.
So at the end of season 1, did you know who that like mysterious figure was?
No.
Did you know that was Boba?
With Fennec? No, with Fennec Shan when she was just sitting there. No, absolutely not. I had no idea.
Okay.
But apparently,
I did, but only
the Spurs gave it away. Apparently.
Right. Adam, did you have any
I was
idea
paying
who that was?
attention, so I did know.
So Adam, did you have any
Spurs.
preconceived like Mandalorian in mind that you thought we were gonna see, or were you the same? You thought it was gonna be Boba?
For me, it's interesting because, like I just said, my relationship to the extended universe that is no longer canon has a lot to do with the legacy of the Force book series, and Boba Fett's a really important character in that series. And they talk about his like granddaughter and his daughter and stuff. And a lot of times now, since Star Wars, we've kind of touched on this, but Star Wars has like so much now that we didn't have even like 10 years ago. It's almost overwhelming because it went from zero, literally nothing except books, to now like hundreds of different TV shows and movies. And we know other books and movies are coming out and games and stuff. So there's so much content to get into that we didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago. But it went from zero to all of it at once. So I'm not as intimately aware of what we have now. And so a lot of times my previous knowledge overlaps with what I haven't really become intimately familiar with yet. So I'll remember a character from the old extended universe, not like a main character, but like a tertiary character. And I'll have trouble remembering whether they're currently canon or they used to be canon. Mm-hmm. And a couple of those characters happen to be Mandalorian, or at least, carrying on Mandalorian clans throughout the galaxy. So no is a really short answer. I did not have any to who might be the Mandalorian that we were expecting. The only thing I knew of, like Chris said, is that we had an awareness before the season came out that Boba Fett was probably going to be in it. And then after episode 1 or 9, whatever you want to call it, we knew explicitly that Boba Fett was going to be in it. It was just a matter of waiting for Boba Fett to show up and own everybody. Yeah. So it was really just every single episode was waiting for me anyway. Was waiting for either Ahsoka or Boba to show up and just murk everybody out of that. So I really didn't have much going into this season that I was anticipating other than those two things. So the other stuff that ends up coming up, like callbacks from the first season, new characters to this season, little things like that, including Bo-Katan, were things that were not necessarily expected by me, but were pretty cool to see for sure. But I think they did it well, especially, I think we talked about this last week, but in episode 9, when they have Timothy Olyphant come in Boba's armor, that's such a good curveball because we all expected Boba Fett, and he came in right off the bat. You're like, oh, sick. And then the first thing he does is take off the helmet. You're like, oh my God, they're just giving you a huge neon sign saying what you expected to happen is not what's going to happen. So you have to just sort of wait and see. And they get to take you on the ride that they want to take you on, not
and
on the ride
they do it in the best possible way,
which is pretty cool.
Because
for sure, the only things I have we'll get to when the episodes come up, and they're not even complaints; they're just like little things where I was like, man, that, like I've been building up to this for so long in my head, and now this is what I would have done. Right. This is what they did do, but I mean, for everything they did between this episode and then the big reveals later in the season, I don't really have any complaints about because they were all just like, this is their show and we just get to enjoy it. And season 1 was like that for me too, because other than the Darksaber, a lot of the callbacks were things that I didn't understand on the surface. So other than like the obvious like hunter killer droids and stuff, so like things like that. And then the Darksaber came up, and I was aware that it was a Clone Wars and Rebels reference, but again, I didn't have of it to really be into it. So like little things like that, and then they name drop people all the time that like Thrawn and all that. Where you're like, oh, I know that name.
That was the best name drop of the season.
It is. It was so really cool. But again, the really short answer is no. I didn't really have any Mandalorians in mind. Yeah. I was just stoked to see whatever they do next because obviously that wasn't Boba. They showed Boba at the end. And at that point, it was just a waiting game. Okay, whenever they do decide to bring Boba in, we'll be nutty. But other than that, I'm just here for the ride.
So, Chris, reaction. What was your instant reaction to the baby getting shoved in the mama core pit? What was your instant thoughts?
Well, the first watch, I was instantly like, oh, come on. They can't just do that right off the bat. We're like 10 minutes into the episode. But, like, other than, like, being, like, special effects, like, just, like, it I mean, it all looked absolutely amazing. But other than that, like, I don't know, at that point, even the first time watching it, there's nothing really good that's going to happen to Baby Yoda. I mean,
he's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Baby's gonna.
And at
be
that point, we
okay.
were calling it Baby Yoda.
Yeah. So at that point,
There's
we're still
no
calling him
way,
Baby Yoda at this point. So
So at that
either
point, I'm
way-
just subscribed to it.
Yeah. So he gets knocked in the
Yeah,
Molotov
it's
pit.
kind of like we talked about last week. It's each episode is kind of like a genre episode where like he flies into the crate dragon and you know exactly what's about to happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't really. It's like a good cowboy.
First episode, yeah.
But you know it's
Yeah. You know he's gonna be fine. But I mean, I get a little stressed. I get a little stressed out. Am I still that naive? I fall into it. I fall for it. I get into it. I'm like, oh, the baby.
That would be cool for them to actually murder Baby Yoda by throwing out the secret to in front of us.
That's a hell of a curve. Yeah, that would be
hell of a ride.
Yeah, hell of a ride. So, Chris, when Bo-Katan shows up, did you know? Now, again, I know Adam says his, he's getting into the Rebels, getting into the Clone Wars now. We're old. We've been into this for a long time. And there's a lot between the books and comics and video games, there's a lot to digest. So like on my end, other than KOTOR and a couple other games, like I'm not as, like I didn't play as many of the games as in depth as Adam did. So,
oh man, Chris and I could do a podcast just about
the games. Yeah,
that's like 50% of Chris's and my relationship with Star Wars video games.
That's amazing.
Oh,
so, how did you feel like when Bo-Katan first shows up? Did you immediately like, oh, I know who that is, or did it take you a second, and then once you finally did realize who it was, or that came about, did you instantly tie the Darksaber aspect in there, or did it not hit you until she mentioned it?
So, I mean, I only knew her from the first time watching Clone Wars, really. And I hadn't, at that point when I watched that Mandalorian episode, I hadn't watched the newer season of The Mandalorian that had come out. Or, I'm sorry, of the Clone Wars that had come out. But either way, I still knew that, like, that was a part of her character, a part of her storyline. A huge part of her storyline, but I didn't know that that's where we were in the timeline at that point for sure. Until we found out that that's what her main goal was, and she didn't have it anymore. She didn't have the Darksaber anymore. So I mean, first off, I wasn't super surprised, but I just didn't know who would show up. I wasn't super surprised that she showed up, but I didn't know who would show up anyway. But it was really awesome when she did show up, and the Night Owls in general showed up.
Yeah,
that was really cool, and just a totally different like style of Mandalorian in the first place. The armor and whatnot. But yeah, I had no idea about the Darksaber. So I mean, that created a whole new like. I don't know. That almost created a whole new, like, just a storyline beneath the Mandalorian storyline that we were already following. That we had to, like, understand. Okay, this is totally intersecting. You know what I mean? And becoming something that we need to. It's suddenly a primary objective here.
Yeah, it became a perfect B plot to season 2. Whereas, like in season 1, we saw the Darksaber and we knew obviously it was going to be significant, but. Din didn't seem to have much of a. I don't know. My thinking coming out of season 1 and going into season 2 was, are they going to be, the leader of Mandalore and make him take the Darksaber? Is he going to be, thrust into this role that he's not really interested in? Because that's part of the old extended universe, the Legacy of the Force series. Boba Fett is in charge of all the clans of Mandalore, but he's not really interested in that. He's powerful in that role, but there's a lot of conflict in the rest of the clans because they don't think he's acting in that role enough,
Yeah.
or acting on their behalf enough.
Okay.
And so it was going to be interesting to me because there's so much in the sequel trilogy and in the first season of Mandalorian where they substitute an old storyline or an old character from old canon in the new canon with a new storyline or character that takes that place. Like, there's no Jaden and Jason Solo, but there is Ben Solo.
Right.
And so like little things like that. So it was really, I was thinking that maybe they were going to do something with that. And then even not being familiar with the Clone Wars, I immediately recognized Bo-Katan just because it's pretty distinctive armor. Because I was so wrapped up in what was happening on screen and story-wise, I wasn't like, oh my God, it's Bo-Katan. Like, I wasn't like, I can't believe. But I also was thinking about what it meant for what's about to happen with the Darksaber. It wasn't like I was just so focused on the narrative that they were playing out on screen. But like Chris was saying, it does create a much more interesting season 2 than just retrieval missions that Mando has to go on. Where, all right, I want what you have and you need me to do this, so I'm going to do this so I can have what you want. And instead of being that formulaic every single episode, now you have this thread where even though they can at some point, the Darksaber is going to have to come into the conversation just because of what it means to any true Mandalorian. So, I think
and Moff Gideon.
Right. Exactly. So they know what it is, and even beyond what it means, spiritually and symbolically, it's a powerful tool and weapon, just practically.
Yeah.
So you knew the Darksaber was going to be significant. I think that was the cool part of season 1 is the Darksaber. I mean, there's little callbacks to the animated stuff, but the Darksaber was it's canon, actually canon, and it's going to matter in this live action universe. So you expect things like Bo-Katan and the Ahsoka to pop up, and they're gonna matter. So it was interesting, but I wasn't like, oh my God, it wasn't as earth shattering as Boba Fett was. When Boba Fett showed up, even though I expected Boba Fett to show up, it was like,
for me, it was it was, if not one of the most important things to happen in this season, probably the most important. Because it ties together this storyline that runs through Star Wars Rebels, right? So I'm going to bring all you casual fans on board now. So now you kind of understand why us deep-level nerds freaked the heck-a-ma-rinky-dink out when we saw Bo-Katan, right? Because there's this Darksaber. There's a very long storyline. Just look up the Darksaber. I'm not going to tell you how it passed from who to who. But this saber has passed down. It ends with Sabine Wren, who is, in my opinion, now you guys are probably going to attack me for this, and I've been waiting to drop this knowledge. But in my opinion, the title of the show, Mandalorian, is about Sabine Wren. It's not about Din Djarin. I believe that is going to come out because she technically is the true ruler of Mandalore. Since, how Rebels finished up, Sabine basically, went out to find Ezra Bridger, who's you guys should know who Ezra Bridger is. If you don't know who Ezra Bridger is, he's a Jedi. He's from Rebels. He was trained by Kanan Jarrus. If you don't know who Kanan Jarrus is, you gotta watch Rebels, guys. But watch Rebels is the point of this. You need to watch Rebels because in that, you'll realize that this Darksaber storyline, Bo-Katan coming in, having to go back to Mandalore, all this is leading us back to Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger. It's all leading us back. So now I realize that The Mandalorian is actually Dave Filoni's live action continuation of Rebels. That's what I think anyway. So when people talk about The Mandalorian, I'm convinced that The Mandalorian's actually Sabine Wren, who is, if you want to talk about BA of all BA Mandalorian, Sabine Wren is it. Like, go watch Rebels because this girl is one of the coolest Mandalorian. She's a Mandalorian turned Imperial weapons specialist. So she creates weapons for the Empire. Turned Mandalorian rebel who literally helps create the faction of rebels that are the ones who created the rebellion with Moss. I'm sorry, Organa, Senator Organa, Mon Mothma. Come on, help me out with his name. We were just talking Admiral Akbar. So she gets together with all these, but they're really the people who get this going. So that's really why for me this was the biggest storyline in the whole show so far, because now it's tying together this entire string of storylines throughout Rebels, and that kind of started in Clone Wars with Pre Vizsla and all that. So now it's really interesting to see that we're having not only having characters brought in, but we're tying in different storylines, and like you said, now it adds a whole new layer because we have all these intersecting stories that really are incredible, and they all bring us into different parts of Star Wars. Cobb Vanth is from the books. You have Bo-Katan, who's from the animated series, and you have Ahsoka, who's from the animated series. Thrawn, who's from Legends. I mean, that's crazy. The fact that we get someone all the way back from Legends to like it's crazy. It's awesome. But yeah, I thought Bo-Katan showing up was a huge deal. Immediately, my brain went to the Darksaber, just because I had just finished watching Rebels like a week before that episode aired, so it was like fresh in my mind. So like I immediately thought of the Darksaber only because I had just watched that, and I thought that's probably what she's after is the Darksaber. So yeah, what did you think? And I'll start with Chris. What did you think about the contrast between the Mandalorians we've seen to this point, which has been Din doing his thing, versus these Mandalorians, where if you haven't watched the animated series, you never really saw Mandalorians besides Boba Fett. But how did you feel they compared to each other? Do you feel like he would have fit in if he was a part of, like, if he was able to join with these, or he clearly was like out of his element?
Well, I mean, in the specific episode, absolutely 100%, he just didn't fit in at all. He wasn't thinking the exact same things as they were. Although when they were first introduced, you saw like their different abilities and the different the weapons that they were using. It was essentially the same exact thing that Din Djarin was using the entire episode or season 1 and up until now season 2. And so you expected sort of the same thing until they started working together on one particular goal, when all of a sudden it was just the 3 of the Night Owls and just Din sort of like straggling along and trying to keep up and sort of not necessarily anticipating exactly what they were doing, even when they would kind of talk about it a little bit beforehand and just go about it. He just sort of seemed like I don't know, sort of lost.
Moved as a unit,
which is weird for him.
Yeah, they moved together and they clearly
Absolutely
grew up, on Mandalore and kind of grew up with that fighting mentality. What I think is interesting is that people would ask me before the show got to this episode, what is Din? Is he, or what's Boba Fett? I don't understand what Mandalorians are. And I thought this episode was great because it would explain it in a way that I was trying to explain it to people and I couldn't really figure out how to do. I'm like, well, he is Mandalorian, but Mandalorian's not what you think it is. It's not you don't have to be from Mandalore to be from Mandalorian, but if you are from Mandalore, you're from Mandalorian. It's one of those weird things that it's hard to explain. So I thought it was great where there are different families in different sects of Mandalore that and that's how it's all broken, and they all war within Mandalore. That's why Mandalore is such a destroyed planet, because before the Empire came, they were just fighting with each other. So it's always they're just like a Spartan race that just beats each
Right.
other up all the time. So I thought that was really nice that we got an explanation on what Mandalorians kind of are and how their society is broken down. Now, obviously, we we have we have some sort of mission, right? We have to complete some sort of something. That's what the whole show is about. That's everybody's whole thing with the trope of the Mandalorian. Oh, he goes and he finds stuff, and then it's. But I love the show anyway. But so we have to go find something. Of course, we got to help Bo-Katan relieve these Imperials of their weapons. There was a lot of cool scenes from that. So speaking on that, so far, what's been, Adam, your favorite action scene from The Mandalorian? Because we got some really good action from this episode, but altogether, what's been your favorite scene?
First, I want to say something about the Night Owls because Chris mentioned something that piqued my interest. To me, it reminded me a lot of season 1 when the prison break episode, where there's a team of people that he joins, and he doesn't really want to, but he has to, and they have an ulterior motive that he's not aware of, but you as something else going on. And they kind of play him like a fiddle. And it was interesting to me that this time he was a little bit more, I would have thought that he would be less apt to be played that way. But he sort of just walked right into it. But it was interesting to see them all operating. It was almost like in a video game when you unlock like the rest of the squad and you have to choose which character to use. They each have their own style of like moving and talking and weapons and stuff. So it was interesting. And then what you were saying about the Darksaber and Bo-Katan and all these things that tie together the books and the animated show, it is Filoni is taking over the universe in a way that Lucas used to, where every time a new trilogy came out or knew about it that connected it, obviously the Anakin story was going to be the story, but there was something else about it. We're like, oh my gosh, now this like politically 50 years in the past matters in A New Hope in a way that we never would have thought of or seen on film. And now we get to see these characters as youths, like starting the rebellion and stuff. So I think Filoni is just carrying on the Lucas legacy in that way, where there's things that matter to Star Wars more than just like the X-Wings and TIE fighters and stuff. Yeah. But they're generations old. So I thought, while I don't have as much of an emotional connection to things like the Darksaber or Bo-Katan, I understand what Filoni is doing in terms of connecting the universe into one thread, and it's pretty neat. And then the last thing is that Ezra is probably the worst Jedi, is in my opinion.
I will fight you.
I don't know much about it, but I have to say that every other Jedi is.
I will fight you.
I have to say that than Ezra.
What? What is wrong with you? How?
I just wanted to get the chance to say better than Ezra. Anyway, what was your question? What's my favorite action scene?
You have to explain yourself.
It's just a band. There's a band called Better Than Ezra, and I was trying to work.
Lost on that. I was like, you can't say that with no explanation.
You don't remember Better Than Ezra?
No.
Oh,
I don't remember.
Man. Anyway.
What was the song that they did?
They were like a big 90s, alt rock. I don't know. Better Than Ezra.
Oh. God.
Hold My Hand, I think is their song.
Well, either way, you set up the.
Anyway, they had they were like Gin Blossom style. Regardless, never mind. Joke not landed. Anyway, the best action scene. You want me to answer that based on just the episodes that we've talked about so far, or based on?
Let's go. Yeah, let's go up to the episode we're at. Up to now, up to that episode. What's been your favorite action scene?
Probably the
Yes.
IG scenes. He was sick.
So
He
sick.
was the way he moved was really cool. The way that Din first had to remove his helmet in season 1, where he had to in order to be saved, and also he didn't have that trust for droids, and uh, it was he. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
That was really cool.
There hasn't really been. I will say though that later scenes in season 2 are definitely my favorite. But
Yeah.
up till now, the last episode or 2 of season 1 had some of the coolest stuff. And then the Prison Break episode was cool too, because I'm not a huge Bill Burr fan, but he was really good in Mandalorian. And the guy, I'm never gonna remember his name, but the guy from the It crowd is in that episode as well. And I just liked the whole heist aspect of it.
Yeah, teaming up
It
with
was
other
just
bounty
not a
hunters
very
and bad guys and
it was more like a Star Wars
yes,
comic book than a Star Wars movie or
that
TV
was
show.
neat.
So it was pretty cool to see all that. And then the way he like just crushed him in the door and everything was nasty. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I will say there's stuff coming up in season 2 that takes the cake, and it's not even particularly
not
close.
even
Stuff
so.
coming up in season 2 made me fangirl hard.
Yeah.
So
up to this point, we the Empire's kind of been a backdrop, right? We get like little taste of what's going on with them, and we kind of have an idea of where they're at this point, as far as their place in the galaxy. It seems like they have these little holdouts here and there, but really they're on the back foot. They're really trying to collect whatever they got left and keep it going. So, it was really interesting to see that exchange between Moff Gideon and his officer when he was like, they've taken this much of the ship, and he's like, well, if they've taken that much, then you know what to do at this point. So, what do you think it says, Chris, about the Empire that your only option is crash the ship and go down with it, or there is no other option. You get that one. You get they already took the ship. You got to. Where do you think this says about the Empire and where they're at, in the galaxy right now? As opposed to where they were, being the main force. Do you think this kind of can give us an idea of where we are?
Well, actually, I think it's stranger than that. I think it's opposite of that. Actually, it's more like we're actually seeing at that point how powerful this little tiny remnant of the Empire actually is. If they're able to just throw away a gigantic ship of weapons, and it was important enough for Bo-Katan to be like, if we take this one ship over, this might overturn the tides in a later battle that we didn't know at that point, but we're not even going to see in this season, at all. It's that big. And, if it's that important, and Moff Gideon says, hey, go ahead. They're about to take over you, then you might as well take the whole ship down. I don't know. I think that shows more that at this point that the Empire is actually more on the rise than on the decline.
Okay. Okay.
Just by the way that they're acting about it.
Yeah.
That they're just gonna throw things away totally dispensable like that. You know what I mean? Unless you had the resources. That's not a cool move. The Rebels would never do something like that because they just don't have the resources for something like that.
Dude, if the Rebels find a toothbrush, they're like, keep it, save it. Use it for something at some point. The Rebels are fighting for scraps. They'll take whatever they can get, man. But that's a good point. I didn't think of it like that. Because my read on that was man, they're in desperation mode. They're in we'll do whatever we have to do.
Well, that's a desperate move, but that's a huge cost that they would have to take too. And then also that he was already ready with quote unquote suicide pill, but in the Star Wars world, suicide pill. that says way too much about how they already had that plan implemented in the background anyway. You know what I mean? Like, this is the plan. Like, you cannot take us down because we're gonna keep moving forward or whatever. Yeah, very scary.
Yeah, the cyanide pill was the indicator to me, because they've always cared more about, you know, the I don't know, the specter of the empire than the individuals within it. Whereas the rebels are the opposite. They care more about the people and the ideals than the, you know, the actual assets of it. And yeah, like Chris said, it was really interesting because it shows their depth of, you know, coldness, that they don't have that same value on the life and everything. But it's interesting too, because I mean,
it's for the empire,
to them it's
for
better for no one to have it than for the enemies to have it.
That's what it is,
right? And there's a lot of examples in like real life, particularly American military history, where there is the idea of, if we can't protect this, then you go down and destroy it, and you go down with it, rather than it fall into our enemy's hands. So it's really it's an interesting worldview, but it could be argued by someone who about it emotionally that it's more viable militarily.
Yes.
Okay,
so
that
I would make that argument because I love the Empire.
So stupid.
Till I die.
How did they? No, they're dumb. And the reason they're dumb is this episode. Is how did they give up? They're like, oh, what door are we behind? I guess it's the airlock. What are you doing? That's the stupidest people of all time. You don't deserve anything. You're worse than the stormtroopers that can't hit anything. That's literally the dumbest strategic thing. They're like, oh, I guess all that's left is the two people on the bridge, and I'll shoot them both and then take my cyanide pill. Like, you lost the ship. The ship wasn't taken from you. You lost it. It's not, you know, it wasn't like you were taken over by a bigger ship and you had no choice but to, you know, say, salute the Emperor and go down. Like, you made terrible decisions as a crew and as a captain, and therefore you don't get to live anymore. And honestly, if it was any other it wasn't Tarkin would have been like, what are you even calling me for? Shoot yourself in the head and get off my phone. Like everybody else, like Vader would have force choked him over the phone. There's nobody else that would have been like, oh, you know what to do. Because they would have known what to do. They wouldn't have even called. Vader would have killed him miles and miles away through the phone.
Right, they would have been too afraid.
Cyanide pills didn't exist in Empire Strikes Back because Vader exists in Empire Strikes Back. So there's no...
What is it, like a little zapper? What is it?
Yeah, he gets the little... Which was cool because visually it reminded me of Return of the Jedi when you can see Luke's teeth through the Force lightning. But no, intelligence to the Empire at many points throughout the Mandalorian, but particularly this episode, I literally groaned when the stormtroopers were like, what, and then they fly off. Like, you're stupid. You're dumb, and you deserve what's happening. And everyone on the bridge deserves whatever happens. I will say this. It was just a question. And honestly, if I was Gideon, I would have been rolling my eyes even harder than he did. Gideon's like, you know what to do. No, like I said, anybody else would have been like, are you kidding me? You just gave up an entire, not Star Destroyer, but whatever you want to call it because you're stupid? Yeah. Like, you don't deserve to be anything above a captain. You would be dead if you were in the old Empire. And you're dead now.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But see, here's the thing. All that's left of the Empire at this point, a little lesson for casual fans. I want to get like a casual blinker, like, casual. Little information for you guys. At this point, we're left of what the vestiges of the Empire are. We're left with like the guys who couldn't quite make rank have now been bumped up in rank because everyone worth anything was on both Death Stars. So we're at the point now where we're left with like, you know, Petty Officer Jim, who like was mopping floors for years and now he's Grand Admiral. Like, it's like we're working with not Great stuff. So, you know, in defense of the Empire.
Yeah, but they have Thrawn.
But I get what you're saying. That moment where they're in the cargo thing and the guy's like, we have him held. We're in the cargo like hold area. He's like, you have him held where? And then you know what's about to happen. Sucked out the airlock. I was like, well, that's cool. That's awesome. But yeah, it was one of those moments you saw coming from a mile away. You're like, well, they're about to get sucked out the airlock. So, but still, even with that, it was very cool. So at this point, you know, my idea of what's going on with the Empire, like I said, I feel like they're clearly in either fight or flight mode. Chris is saying they're in fight mode. They're like full on, listen, we're willing to sacrifice this massive thing for the overall plan of whatever that overall plan is. We kind of have an idea, but we don't quite know. But that overall plan, we're willing to take an entire like cruiser and sacrifice it for that. To me, that looks like desperation mode, where it's like, listen, it's last Hail Marys at this point. Like, we're just gonna throw everything we can at this, and you know, take everything we can. So I have an idea of what is going to happen, you know, a little bit later on, only because we do have the Aftermath series and all that, but that's a little bit later after this. So there's a bunch of stuff that hasn't been told to us yet that I don't quite know. But we're getting towards that.
Right, that's what I was going to say. It's more like what Chris was saying, because tie it back to the prequels. In the old prequels, like episode 1 and 2, they're not the Empire yet, but what's going to become the Empire, they do things that strategically, you know, you have to lose something, and like they give up Count Dooku, they just sacrifice him. And the same thing with Grievous, and like little strongholds throughout the galaxy. But at the end of the day, by doing that, they're able to keep the Republic. The Republic thinks they're getting win. Hey, we took Grievous, and hey, we took this base back. But like this is all part of the chess game. And I think this is similar, because what's about to happen, we've already seen. That like, it's just like the prequels. We've already seen what the Empire is in the original trilogy. Now we know what's going to happen, because we know what the First Order is going to be in 10 years. Yes. So we've seen how the First Order can literally blow away, you know, Maz Kanata's Takodana. They can blow away Takodana, and they can blow away Coruscant, and they don't even have to blink about it. They literally have a sun that they can draw. They have
they definitely
legions and legions. So I think that's all being planned right now. There's no way it's not. They've already name dropped Thrawn. They've already got Gideon, Gideon's even just a puppet in everything that's going on, I think. And
they've already showed us
this
that
is
little
all
kind of clone thing that looked kind of like Snoke,
right?
A little bit,
right. So and we know of like the idea of dark troopers, and like there's little things that we've seen that are like, okay, they're building towards something bigger. So for them to have something like this and say, you know what, if we can't have it, that's fine, but neither can these, you know, this scum. They're not going to. And as a result, our plans keep moving the way we need them to move. There's something happening behind the scenes in terms of a puppet master pulling the strings. It's not gonna be on the same level as Palpatine in the prequels, but it's gonna be similar. I'm telling you, there's something else there where it's not. They don't think that they're acting desperately. To them, at least somebody, this is part of the plan. Now that said, whoever is boots on the ground is ignorant to that plan. So the people in this ship that get thrown out the airlock and the captain that takes the cyanide pill, they're not, you know, smart or big enough to be part of whatever plan somebody else has going on. They're just a pawn on the board. So when they make a mistake that results in them being swept off the board, that's fine, because they're just a pawn. But at the end of the day, somebody else is behind the scenes, and they're not desperate even a little bit. And that's at least my take. Because the prequel
because I think it's Palpatine, and so he's playing the long game. Because I mean, he had to get his clones made, and I think this is the story of how we get those clones made.
Right, it's Thrawn and Palpatine for sure. I don't have any doubts about it.
Thrawn is definitely pulling the strings, and Palpatine's definitely pulling the strings, or at least what's his contingency plan that was left behind. Because we do know that he's somewhat dead at this point. Kind of. So we're getting towards the end of the episode. Both ours and the one that we watched. As we get towards the end of the episode, we get a name drop, Ahsoka Tano. We knew that we were gonna get that name eventually because we knew going into the season we were getting Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. But either way, towards the end, we get the name drop, and we figure out where we need to find her, which is on Corvus. So we know where we're headed. Now going into that to go find Ahsoka, Chris, were you when we were on our way to find Ahsoka, what did you think she was going to be up to? What did you have any clue at all, or were you excited to see her? First off, how did you feel about her appearance when we finally did see her? I want to get your quick little feelings on Ahsoka in general. Like, how'd you feel about us getting to meet her in live action? And then when you did get to meet her, how'd you feel? What was your impression?
Well, first off, the anticipation was ridiculous. And then when we finally got to meet her, when we finally saw her on the screen, it was really incredible. Again, I mean, Bo-Katan, until we saw Ahsoka, Bo-Katan was the greatest from animation to on-screen live performance, translation that we've ever seen before. At least for the most part, at least for Star Wars, anyway. And it was really incredible and really on point, and just at least for me.
Yeah.
And it also showed that she was, more mature. And you could see that in her character. But you could still see the way, you could hear the way she spoke and the way she moved. You know what I mean? Even though it was straight from animation, it was still, they captured all of that. And I don't know, that was a really special episode, and especially
the way it ended, I thought was great. This episode, chapter 11,
disagree.
It was fantastic. I think it was great to be able to get these characters. I thought her sidekicks. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna remember their names right now.
The guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh god.
It's Sasha Banks. Come
on. Oh man. That was great. The fight scenes were great, and then I think it was really interesting to see didn't have to work with other Mandalorians who didn't necessarily uphold what he thought was the Mandalorian code. I thought that was really a great underlying kind of story to it, where it's we kind of see him have to grapple with what it means to be a Mandalorian for him, and then kind of seeing these guys have their own code that they live by, and that doesn't mean they're not Mandalorian. So I feel like this is the first episode we start to see his belief system kind of get pushed a bit.
It for sure shows that he has a religion, and it's different from his species or his origin. They to him are like heathens. He's used to, this is the way. You don't take your mask off or your helmet or whatever. And then he to them is a zealot, a total
from who's
blasphemer
a hermit somewhere.
Right.
They call them a zealot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really it is pretty interesting that they each have the other is what they perceive as the outsider, as opposed to seeing the other's perspective, because they're equally. That to me is one of the most interesting parallels, and this is where Star Wars hits home for me. Is there's so many examples of that in real life. Whether it's the two wings of our political system or religions or whatever. There's so many people that see themselves as unequivocally, unquestionably right, and the other side is just wrong. And they don't see that that's just a matter of perspective. And Star Wars always seems to get that, really poignantly. But that was interesting.
Yeah, that was a great, like I said, a great underlying kind of tension throughout the episode where you did feel kind of like Din having to wrestle with that feeling of like who he is as a Mandalorian, what it means to him, and then having those moments where she was kind of sarcastically like, "This is the way," and then at the end she really like kind of acknowledged his religion and his idea of what it means to be a Mandalorian, which I thought was really great.
But she also uses it against
like,
him. Like she's kind of
against him at first,
a dick about it. Like strategically, she has an upper hand because she knows there's some things that he can't or won't do just out of a belief system. And it's pretty interesting, the rules of engagement, because again, Star Wars explores it through all different characters throughout the movies, the books, whatever. There's always somebody exploring somebody else's limits, not just their own. Like the Death Star literally destroys civilizations, and that's uncalculable, and it's really incalculable. It's it's just it's unheard of, totally unacceptable by any metric, and yet they do it in a way that pushes their opponent into action. Like it's planned to bring people out of the shadows, and it just doesn't go their way. But it's all about hubris. It's all about what can I do that is pushing the envelope a little bit further than the other side's willing to go. And the Mandalorian clans are just a microcosm.
Chris, what were you going to say before we start wrapping up here?
I mean, I was just going to bring up that Bo-Katan did sort of mention that almost in her own, in a meta-narrative way, but it just sort of references, what her story was back in Clone Wars and maybe in Rebels too, with Death Watch, and just her history with Death Watch, and she sort of inferred that Din Djarin was may have been brought up by Death Watch, or maybe a youngling from that, a foundling from that, which she was a part of in the first place, until that's a whole different history. But that's fascinating to me that she's exactly.
It was an exposition for people like me who know Star Wars but don't know Rebels or Clone Wars as well as I could, to see Bo-Katan and know, I know who she is visually, but I don't know who she is significance wise. So her little exposition there gives me like I can sit and watch it with someone like Carly, and after the episode she doesn't have to say who was that and have me put on the spot. Like it's pretty cool because it allows, as you say, casual fans to enjoy it in a way that they probably wouldn't be able to if she was just there. It would still be cool, but it wouldn't be as deep an experience.
Guys, it's getting towards that time. An hour goes by so quick, and I feel like it's hard to deep dive into these episodes as much as we want to get into them, because there is a lot there. I mean, we can talk about the surface stuff, action, characters, whatever, or you can get into each individual story arc. There's just so much. Or if we could spend just the whole time just talking about scenery and ships or special effects, there's just so much to get into, guys. But next episode, you can expect us, if I get Chris and Adam back, which I'm hoping I can get both of them back, because I love this episode.
No.
Next episode, we're doing
Not
versus.
interested.
So I want you guys to come with some Jedi in mind. All right? Adam and Chris. Oh,
wait, a battle rap?
Yes, we're battle rapping. We're battle rapping.
You want me to bring my verses?
We're doing verses, spitting bars. No, we're doing verse. So I need you guys to come with Jedi in mind. And we're gonna put those guys up against each other. And we're gonna spend a whole episode talking about who we think could beat who in combat. When it comes to force wielding, and when it comes to just straight up fashion, when it comes to looking good, we're gonna see who stacks up as the number one. We're gonna have a little tourney, and we gotta state our case. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a little battle, so that'll be enjoyable. And then we're also gonna talk to Chris a little bit next time we get him on about his process for making some music for the show. Because I'm really excited about that. So we got some really fun stuff that's not Mandalorian related, but it is really fun. So.
We got to talk about
I know we
Lucasfilm's
have
games,
so much to talk
man.
about. We have to cover news. We have so much to talk
LTD.
about. Lucasfilm's games.
There's a huge announcement.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
crazy.
Our childhood is returning. It's just amazing. If you guys aren't aware, Lucasfilm's games it all used to be under one umbrella. All video games, it was all under one thing from Lucasfilms.
LucasArts.
And then it wasn't for a long time, and now it is again. So that's the short story. We'll give you Furlong very soon. Our next episode, we're going to cover news. We're going to do verses, little battles with our Jedi. We're going to talk about Chris and some music. But the way we end every show now is we got to give a quote. And I don't prepare my guests for this. It's really fun. Chris, Star Wars quote. Go. You gotta give me a quote. Star Wars quote. Either your favorite.
That's my favorite one.
Eat chupa! Okay.
Eat chupa! Mucha shaka
That's one.
Yeah.
Oh, yes! Mucha shaka paga is such a good one. That's Mandalorian, by the way.
Yeah. That's Hati's Mandalorian throwback. Mucha shaka paga! Tiwanawanga!
Oh, that's the best quote we've had so far. And I'll still call out Andy for having
All
the
right.
most. I'm never gonna let that go, Andy. It was terrible. But thank you for that, guys. Let me just real quick.
What we do here is go back.
So excited for tonight. Joined us. This is Talking Sid at all the socials. You can find us. Make sure you check it out. We're trying to drop episodes maybe Wednesday, Thursday, who knows? Thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. Chris,
See you next
Adam,
Tuesday.
hopefully I get you guys back again for the next episode.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much. And guys, may the Force always find you in a happy place, and may it be with you always, and may it hold you in your darkest hours. May the Force cradle you.
Like that little kid sweeping at the end of The Last
May
Jedi.
it cradle you in his arms.
Sweet.
Guys, I'm Chaz. Adam, thanks again. Miss you.
I miss
Chris, thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. Thank